Good evening, free enterprise fans, and welcome to a wonderful brackets early stage. I am Alicel, and I am joined here by my favorite streaming marsupial. How are you doing tonight, Possum?
Mm, buttons. Oh no, I mean I'm doing great. Thank you, Ali. I'm so happy to be here with you and getting a chance to do some commentary for this fantastic match between Poidrac and Y2Sky.
Yep, and this is kind of um like almost pre-brackets. There's a flow chart somewhere, I'm sure, with buttons.
Yeah, Poidrac and Y2Sky both here in this opening round for the brackets, basically trying to get into that round of 32. This is kind of the overflow stage, if you will, where we had so many great runners that we just couldn't cut to a top 32. So Poidrac and Y2Sky get to battle it out tonight and battle it out in a best of three in order to see who gets to face Dusty Griff in the next round, which is quite a reward.
Quite. But this is our first look at the bracket flags. I know you've played a couple of these bracket seeds. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the differences between the Swiss flags?
Sure thing. So the biggest differences are first and foremost, S cell 0 is on, meaning if it's in your inventory, you have two options: equip it or trash it. It doesn't sell for anything. That also means that there won't be gold in chests. The gold is reduced to zero, so not too fun. T Pro is on instead of T Wildish, meaning the loot is objectively worse. You're going to see one of two ways that runners will handle this: either a whole lot of looting or very specific looting. You'll also see no more Spoonword. Boo! Everybody loves Spoonword, but at least Edge can still use the spoon as a dart, but the spoon cannot be equipped. Those are some of the big changes to the bracket flags. They're just in general quite a bit more difficult than the Swiss flags, and that is intentional because the runners at this point, this is the best of the best, and they need to be tested.
And it does look like our runners are off. We did see a vanilla Dark Knight Cecil start, joined by a bard. Ew.
Yeah, this is a bit rough. Let's see what's in our random kit. That did not look like a good random kit. Oh my heavens. No black sword, no good tier 4 or 5 item. Now, the runners did start with 57,000 gold, so they do get a decent start. It can be anywhere from 20 to 80,000 roughly. But that was not a great set of items to go with it. I think that might be literally nothing equipable for this team.
And this team doesn't have a whole lot of power between them.
Yeah, the interesting thing with this team, I would want to instantly check what they have equipped, because if Edward high rolls a dancing dagger, or if Cecil high rolls a black sword, then they could be in business. A darkness sword and a charm harp, not exactly what you're looking for, but we get instant divergence from the runners. Poidrac checking out Eblin Castle, Y2Sky checking out Watery Pass.
Both of these locations do have a little bit higher tier level, a little bit more luck to find something that is just a little bit better to help these runners kind of get through this early game.
Yeah, Eblin in particular has a lot of really high tier items in there, but also has 3 trap chests, so it's a bit more of a commitment than the play from Y2Sky. And Y2Sky, I think, is getting the better of this so far. Found a black sword and also found a Boreas. Poidrac has found a lit bolt, some Dragoon gauntlets, but nothing really to help him do any meaningful damage.
Yeah, unfortunately, not finding really what we're looking for. Ooh, and talking about things you don't want to see. That is a free fight in the waterfall.
I mean, the runners might not want to see it, but I am 100% here for it. That means more nasties along the way for us to talk about. And it's like Y2Sky hitting, I think that was 7 of 9 or 8 of 9 chests with 0 GP. Uh, that's good old SL 0 coming in full right there.
That is a big whammy.
Yeah. I will say Poidrac finding a Grimoire on his side, definitely a very nice pickup for this team. That Grimoire could roll anything from a Mist Summon or a Chocobo, all the way up to the God of Dragons himself, Bahamut. Lots of variants there, but could be a literal free fight in a nasty place, such as like a back attack Magus Sisters or something like that.
And Poidrac finding a trap chest up here, did see a silk web on his way up. Probably wants to pick that back up, as that's one of those items that you really want to hold on to for those real nasty fights.
Yeah, Silk Webs basically straight up applies 2 stacks of slow immediately to whatever enemy it is used on. And if it's used on things like Baigen, for example, the Silk Webs will persist through the arms dying. So even if the arms are resummoned, they still come back with 2 stacks of slow on them. So it's a really handy item, not to mention what it does for you against Aromas.
And meanwhile, we see Y2Sky doing a little bit of looting here in Antlion, and he picked up a Bacchus wine.
Yeah, Bacchus wine, definitely a good item. It's one of those tier 5 consumables that you really want. It allows you basically to consume the item, and all of a sudden you are berserked. So it can really help get through a tricky situation that you might not otherwise be able to get through just by jamming the Q and getting a ton of attacks off. Poidrac, however, did find a mute knife. I wanted to highlight that because that mute dagger is something that Edge can use, Kane can use, Cecil can use, Eddie can use, even Palom in a pinch. But ha ha ha, look who that is hanging out in Antlion Alley.
That is actually a lot less root than you would think. Only having 2 characters, you don't have to worry about the Shadow Dragon taking anybody down. The magic attack at this spot is not horrible, although 260 HP is also not the dream.
Yeah, I don't know that Edward can survive a hit from anything here from Golbez, but I think my worry would be the Lit 3. Now, Y2Sky found that Black Sword, though, which means that Cecil is going to be blazing fast. I think he can get a Star Veil up on that Cecil before Golbez can take an action. That's how fast that Cecil should be.
Gets it queued up, does a nice little run buffer, and does get that Star Veil off, which means I think this fight's in the bag.
Yeah, this is basically going to be hold A now. Down goes Eddie, to absolutely nobody's surprise. But hopefully this Veil stays on the whole time. We get a nice reflected Lit 3 here. Yeah, that 258 would have killed Cecil, so I think Y2Sky is in hold A and hope we get there mode. And meanwhile, Poidrac found something very important in a shop. First of all, Dancing Dagger. Second of all, cabins. Finding camping gear on this flag set is so important and so hard to do. So those are both huge pickups for him.
Yep, it looks like Poidrac is going to get all of his shopping out of the way early on, and actually going to check that character in Hobbs. Doesn't know that he could be a little bit punished for it.
Well, not going to be super punished because he'll get through it, a lot quicker with that Dancing Dagger, and he can also hide with Edward when getting into that Golbez fight. So it's not a super big punish, I don't think, unless it's some sort of weird situation or weird confluence of events where he can't get a hide off with Eddie.
Meanwhile, Y2Sky did pick up one of our required items for Go mode, picking up that adamant rock needed to forge the Excalibur.
Yeah, that adamant rock, one half of the forge. One important thing, and I forgot to mention this earlier in the changes for Bracket vs. Swiss, there is no Excalibur handed out when the forge is completed. The Excalibur has been added to the pool of key items. So in many cases, it actually makes it easier to get an Excal. But it takes away that guaranteed Excal for forging. So kind of a tricky situation. But that forge really only gets you a shop on this flag set.
Well, that's very rude of Kokol, taking your rock and not giving you anything in return.
Well, it's kind of one of those things where so many people have robbed him over the years and taken whatever's off his bookshelf. And he's just very unhappy with us all at this point, and I can't really blame him.
On Y2Sky's side, we do see another one of those free fights in a pretty easy location.
Yeah, even this Dark Elf fight is fairly free, all things considered. So this is a lot of pretty trivial bosses early on here. The Officer Soldier down, the King Queen Eblin that we know of, this Dark Elf, those are some of the easier bosses out of the pool early. Golbez is never usually hard, just time consuming. So that's going to leave a lot of really, punchy or nasty bosses down the line here.
And speaking of punchy and nasty, we really didn't talk about our two random objectives of defeat the Fabul Gauntlet and defeat Pale Dim.
Yeah, one of those in Pale Dim is not too bad because you can just kind of bop it, put up some blinks if a white mage ever gets found, and deal non-elemental damage to it. The other is everybody's Fabul Gauntlet, which is the alt gauntlet. So it's no longer some gargoyles and some officers and their little soldier guys. It's any 5 random encounters picked from the table of encounters in the area where you find it.
And it looks like we are back up.
Yes, it does. And in the interim, both runners have now completed Hobbs. Both runners have completed Antlion Cave. I am not certain if Poidrac has completed Fabul. However, I can tell you he is on his way through this barren inn. Sees a Rosa there. Looks like he's going to take a rest before fighting that Baigan.
Meanwhile, Y2Sky is doing a little bit more looting here in the Village of Mist. Not finding anything particularly game-breaking, but some nice gear for when you get your heavy bruisers.
Yeah, there's been a lot of nice gear for bruisers, but no bruisers to be found yet until we can get that Cecil turned into a paladin, which looks like Y2Sky wants to go do.
Very nice check. Little bit long, but when you have 2 boss hunts, 3 bosses in one spot is a nice, quick 3 check.
Yeah, I don't know if I would want to find the Fabul Gauntlet up here right now, though, with this team. Not a lot of AoE, kind of rough. Just overall, not something I'd enjoy.
And it looks like Y2Sky did pick up a elven bow, which pretty nice bow, all things considered.
Yeah, definitely a nice bow, and also has every claw you could really want for Yang, short of the cat claw. Has thunder, ice, and fire in there to go with 2 poison claws. And speaking of things that both Ice and Thunder are good against, there is Kainatsu, which is a really rude boss at a really not rude location. So that's a good sight to see for the runners. A little sad for us up here in the booth.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Kainazo hook route is dead.
Yeah, there's still plenty of other nasties out there, though. We could still get DKC into Ogopogo for funsies.
Or Evil Wall into Ogopogo.
That's true, although this Edward makes Evil Wall and DKC a little trivial, so maybe we need to make it Ogo into something else.
So Ogo into Evil Wall means
That'll
Edward,
work.
Yeah, that wall can't beat itself.
Yeah, that'll work. I like that. Meanwhile, Poidrac put a Star Veil up on his Yang, making sure he will always have one person alive through that Leviathan. Very heads-up play there, and is rewarded with both a Rat Tail and a Rosa, which means, shy of a sneaky D-Mist, Y2Sky will be the first runner with underground access. However, Poidrac is going to have Rosa. So I don't know which one is better, but I do know that the runners are very close right now.
Yeah, as a general rule, you typically do want to have a white mage to kind of keep your party alive.
Yeah, and in this case, not just any white mage, but the preeminent white mage in the game. Rosa, the big downfall is early on. She does lose the ability to gain early Berserk and early Blink, like Porum does. But after about the mid-20s for levels, her HP growth is just so far superior, her stat growth, and her spell gains come in so much quicker. Something like a 10-level difference on getting Cure 4, which is just enormous in the grand scheme of things.
And since you've got that Cecil and are immediately heading up to Mount Ordeals, you don't have to worry about the fact that she does not naturally learn Exit.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That Mount Ordeals play, getting that Exit on Cecil, going to be a big deal. Getting that Paladin in general is a big deal, especially for all this heavy armor that we found. But meanwhile, Y2Sky gets through that Kainatsu. Poidrac, hot on his heels, though, has made up a decent bit of ground. However, still has not done Fabul. So our runner's still very tight. And looks like Poidrac is doing a little bit of looting up here. And Y2Sky is joined by Dr. Dialogue himself.
And this being the back attack location, you unfortunately are going to have to listen to all of it.
Yep. And not only in this form, but the pain in the butt part is the next form, where Dr. Dialogue will decide to poison you. That's the annoying part, because that also means Yang can no longer power punch when he is poisoned. It is quite annoying. And Y2Sky, getting the full experience from the Doctor, getting to see Belnab Z as well.
And not having that Rosa kind of means that Y2Sky is doing some apothecary work.
Yeah, he has. He's living on those Cure 2s and a little bit of a dream right now. One of the nice things for him, though, is once this Cecil transforms, he will learn Cure 1 at least. So he will have minor healing, and he will learn Cure 2 a little bit later. So there is a little bit of White Mage in Cecil, but not to the extent that Rosa provides.
Yeah, if you're depending on Cecil as your white mage, something has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, because first of all, he should be your DPS, not your white mage. But secondly, yeah, it means you probably haven't found the curatives you want. And you're most likely struggling a little bit, because Cecil as a white mage is okay. And that's the nicest thing I can say about that. But Poidrac chewing through that Kainatsu, or I should say that Dancing Dagger, really doing work there. such a key item to pick up from that Silvera shop.
Does go ahead and take that safety save. Totally understandable because he did not save before that Kainatsu.
Yeah, kind of came up here and said, I will take on the first boss and figure out my life later. And as we speculated, there is our underground access. No hook route, no sneaky demist. So that is Magma Key, which is going to get both of our runners underground without too many trials or tribulations. And a little bit of French vanilla as well, as we have Mylon and friends hanging out where Dark Knight Cecil normally is.
Y2Sky making work of those lit rages. Unfortunately not going to do, or Thor rages, unfortunately not going to do a ton of damage.
Yeah, not going to do a ton of damage, but any AoE is good AoE. Cecil starting with a Drain Sword, not exactly what you want to see. I guess maybe Drain Venger is on the table an hour to an hour and 20 minutes from now, but probably not what our runners want for his starting weapon, or his endgame weapon for that matter.
For those who may not be familiar with the C Neki flag that we have on here, our characters no longer start with their vanilla starting gear, but instead start with a weapon of some sort. And that's it.
Yeah, that C Neki flag have a tier 1 to 3 item as far as a weapon is concerned, and nothing else. So Yang can start with any one of his claws but a cat claw. Edward can start with any of his harps, like Charm Harp or Dreamer Harp. Cecil can start with a myriad of swords and different staves, such as a Silver Staff or even a Cure Staff. But he can also come with things like Slumber Swords, which are really nice. In this case, he came with a Drain Sword, which is a little less nice.
But Y2Sky has finished Mount Ordeals and will likely be our first runner underground.
Yeah, we'll see if he stops and goes to pick up that Rosa. He might, because getting the levels, let's say using a Siren and pulling up an egg and getting those levels, it may behoove him to do that before Baron Inn to make it easier, or it may behoove him to do it after. So it'll be interesting to see what Y2Sky's mindset is on when he goes underground and does he grind it all. But looks like he's charging there now, just as Poidrac is charging through the mountain. No save going into the third fight here. So Poidrac definitely going for this, not messing around. You'd love to see the aggression.
And Y2Sky also has that pan, which means that is 3 free key items you can very easily pick up down in the underground. 4 key items.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Allie. And we discussed this a little bit earlier, that the X-Gal is thrown into the pool of items. So that is 4 shots at an X-Gal. And yeah, all of a sudden, I'm really liking this just go right underground from Y2Sky, because as good as Rosa is, X-Gal Cecil is that much better.
And that looks like what Y2Sky is going to do. Going to get that freebie. Well, going to save first, see what he can find down in the Fey March, and then maybe get that freebie.
Yeah, and this kind of speaks a little bit to the discussion we had about looting earlier, where what are the approaches the runners are going to take? Are they going to loot a lot to make up for the fact that it's T-Pro? Or are they going to loot a little bit in very particular areas? It looks like Poidrac is taking the approach of, I will loot a little bit in very particular areas, whereas Y2Sky is taking the approach of, I'm going to loot a ton to find some nice stuff. And nice stuff he found, that was a cursed ring in the Fey March caves there. So very, very nice pickup.
And he also found that monster chest, so he knows he can loot the remainder of the chests without having to worry.
Yeah, he gets this whole third floor, which is where the bulk of the chests are. In addition to that cursed ring, that's a huge bit of gear advantage, I would say. Because neither one of our runners have found very good weaponry. Like a fire sword, unironically, is the best weapon that we have found so far for the Cecil. So that's a nice pickup for Y2Sky. Spears galore. If only there were a cane somewhere for this party. There's a legend sword. So again, he has Forge, but it doesn't give the Excal. It's an objective that's going to be complete and a really nice shop, but no super shiny sword, which is super sad.
And one big issue with that shop is it is very, very expensive.
Yeah, the cheapest item in the Coco shop is Artemis arrows, followed by, I want to say, moon veils. I think Artie arrows are 500 a piece, and then moon veils are 20k a piece. Protect rings are like 30k, crystal rings are 50k. Any of the weapons in there are like, 80, 90, 100k. Basically, it's a nice shiny shop. You just can't buy anything, and it's kind of a shame.
And this is a little bit of a spicy Fey March. Slightly less spicy.
Yeah, it's not the objective, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Our runners probably don't want to see a gauntlet in the Fey March, but at the same time, they probably do want to see a gauntlet to at least know where it is, because it's an objective. Ew.
Oh my.
So that's an oak rope at the Leviathan spot. And that is something that, I don't know, Allie, when do you think they're going to fight that? Ever?
The only way that's going to get fought is if that's their darkness crystal and moon is hard required.
Yeah, that's kind of my theory on that too. That's a disgusting fight. That's like at the very top of the do not want list.
But with Ogopogo there, would that kind of be like sugar-free vanilla extract sort of thing?
Since it is kind of like Leviathan's dad, in a sense, where it's the nopiest of noodles instead of the slightly nope noodle. A museum technician and conservator. That's a job.
Very fancy dwarf today.
Yeah, and we do get this pan bonk from Y2Sky, and this is going to be interesting. There's a twin harp. So this is a big deal because A, obviously that's an objective, but B, if Poidrac holds out on Fabul, he's going to miss out on that pan, and the pan we know now turns into an objective. So this Sheila check and this Fabul, sorry, the words are hard. This Fabul check becomes huge because Poidrac needs to get that pan to get that twin harp, and I hope we see that come in fairly soon once the Sheila 1 check is set up.
Absolutely. I'm sure Poidrac is kind of going with the Fade Fabul sort of mindset, hoping that you can make one dip. Oh my.
Yep. So, about that Excalibur that's been put into the pool, yeah, there it is. Sheila had it all along. So, not only is Cecil online for the Excal, something that I actually think is really nice, a crystal armor was the reward from Sheila 1. So now online not only for Cecil Gobert, but also for cover strat Cecil. So you get the best of both worlds in one fell swoop there. That is huge.
Absolutely. You put that crystal armor on Cecil, you slap him in the back row, and get everybody down to low health. And yeah, things get a lot easier in life.
Yeah, it's going to make every fight that Y2Sky does having this Excal far, far easier than every fight Poidrac does without it. So this is, one of those things where certain characters are just simply made differently. Cecil, it's like he's the protagonist of the story or something and gets all the shiny toys. But also Fusoya. Those are the two characters that really change the outcomes of seeds. And Y2Sky has this Cecil online earlier. And that is an unequivocal advantage, and not only online, but this is a very beefy Cecil as far as his gear. Dragoon gauntlets, crystal armor, crystal shield, and diamond helm. That young man in the back row is taking no damage.
And we did see Y2Sky go ahead and back row glitch that Cecil. Do you kind of want to explain what the back row glitch is for those who may not know?
Sure. So the back row glitch is basically something that gets set where a character will not naturally, in most cases, be able to hit for full damage from the back row, nor be able to deal full damage to enemies that are in the not front row. So in the case of Baigen, for example, the front arm is in the front and the other two pieces are not. So what happens is you can equip arrows or bows and arrows or harps to some characters or dwarf axes to some characters, and it sets a flag, basically making them a permanent member of the back row. So even if that back row is then taken off, for example, the arrows, the dwarf axe, the harps are removed, the bit stays on, and it's basically just a bug. But it's a bug that works in runners' favors. So it's a very nice thing, in this case for Y2Sky, to have a fully kitted out Cecil in the back row dealing all this extra damage.
And meanwhile, on Poidrac's side, he is actually going to try and take on this water hag.
Yeah, I don't hate it because he has 4 characters, he has a cursed ring, so he's going to be able to get everybody to do this with enough attacks. On a low enough battle speed, he'll get through it nice and easy. And while Y2Sky gets his Rat Tail and his Rosa, Poidrac gets effectively his Dragon Egg done. And so he's going to get through that Water Hag pretty clean, loses Rosa, which stinks, picks up a Life Staff, though, which stinks a little less, but not a key item.
That Life Staff is the best White Mage staff stick in the game. So going to be something you can use pretty much throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, unless Rosa needs to be turned into Warrior Princess Rosa, which is highly unlikely given what we know about the Excalibur being available. Yeah, she's now ready to be that second half of the power couple with Cecil, and they can pretty much take this thing home by themselves. It might take a little while, but they can get there.
And we also see Y2Sky going ahead and going for music.
Yeah, definitely like the check. It's an objective, and the Twin Harp is one of those early game checks that can give you a very nice key item or very nice item in general. It has something like a 70% chance to give you some form of progression or even some form of terminal key item like a sand ruby or a package, which could be an extra character check. So a very nice play here from Y2Sky, following his objectives, but also knowing that there could be good rewards from this. Could even be a darkness crystal.
Absolutely. And looks like Poidrac might be gonna go ahead and turn in his forge, get his nothing from our good friend Kokol.
Yeah, he gets a flame spear for robbing the old man, as we like to say, which I want to say is, the third or fourth flame spear we found with absolutely no cane in sight, which surprises nobody. Yeah, see, look at all those shiny things, crystal rings, protect rings, and you can't buy any of it. Feels bad.
But we in the booth are going to be quiet while our favorite DJ Spoonie B throws on some tunes.
Yeah, enjoy, y'all. I'll be nice and not talk over this one since, Allie's nice, and I don't think she'd like me if I did that. All right. And that was Freya's theme from Final Fantasy IX, and Y2Sky getting through that Magus sister fight there and is going to be rewarded with a glass hat. So just in case you needed more cover strats, there you go, crystal armor and glass hat.
Yeah, anything punchy is not going to be doing a whole lot to that Cecil.
Yeah, there's not a ton that's going to stand in his way, except maybe getting out of the Magnus cave here. Looks a little shy on exit. So going to have to take this, what we call walk of shame, out of here. And kudos to Y2Sky remembering how to walk out of here, especially with with poison on, because this is not something you have to do every day, and that ringing might be a little reminder of, oops, maybe I'll get exit next time.
Yeah, there are places I'm not very good at walking out of. This is second top of the list.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of having to walk out of the lunar subterrane, the barren sewer, or Cave Magnus. Those are just not fun.
But Poidrac is going to get his Excalibur here from Sheila.
Yeah, and not only getting that Excal, but also going to have Berserk on his Rosa. So that will make a huge difference in that Twin Harp fight in particular. But Y2Sky may be giving us a Dwarf Castle check here. And if he can get through this, that will be our first bit of new information in a little while.
Yep. Again, this is a great check. We've got 2 boss objectives. This is 2 bosses, a character check to fill out your party, and a key item check.
Yeah, and it's another, I want to say 21,000 XP from this first spot. So it's going to get him quite a few levels. It will get him Berserk. And it'll just be a good time all around if Y2Sky can get through this first fight.
Yep, there are still a number of nasty bosses, and there can be some real humdingers in this first spot.
Yeah, and if we don't see a sprite jumping, it means it's Antlion, which, that's gross. So, ew.
Speaking of...
And I think this is a very smart reset from Y2Sky, because the issue is, well, I guess he's going to try to Zerk up, so he might be trying to go in with a Bacchus wine here to get through this, but the counters are kind of annoying. So it looks like both runners have reset out of the Dwarf Castle 1 check now. It according to chat, has already happened for Poidrac as well. But buying that Siren there, we may see an egg or 2 cracked here, and that would get Y2Sky all of the help he needs for this Antlion.
Absolutely. Just even 1 egg, and I think I saw a coffin buy.
Yeah.
Just real quick infusion of experience. You don't have to worry about the egg cracking and murdering you painfully.
Yeah, and there's that coffin use. Making sure Edward is down to stay on anchoring duties. But while that is going on, while that siren is being used, I think we could use some more music in our lives. How do you feel about that, Allie?
I think we should.
All right. All right, and Poidrac also through that Magus Sister fight. Y2Sky getting through Antlion and is on to the Karate Man himself and picked up an old man for his troubles, but it was not the superior old man. Gets the ultimate utility mage in Tella, but he instantly fell down.
Bright side is Tella makes a pretty good anchor.
Oh yeah, Tella with a cursed ring, you can level him up to the high 50s before you ever have to worry about anything. So that's a permanent anchor with that cursed ring should Y2Sky choose to accept him.
But we still haven't seen either of our boss objectives.
Yeah, no gauntlet, no pale dim. We are getting a mist cave check from Poidrac, and at that same time, we are getting a reward from Dwarf Castle, and there is the hook. So that's going to be a rat tail turn in for Y2Sky, and also going to be an eventual pink tail turn in, possibly, plus another character check. And Poidrac found a spinny young lady hanging out in the mist cave, and I'm sure he is very happy to not see her literally anywhere else.
Yep, Valvalis is one of those bosses that, depending on your party composition, can hard block you in a seat.
Yes. Thankfully for our runners, Excal Cecil will be able to take care of that. And looks like we are getting a keyless tower check from Poidrac saying, I am good on this antlion. Let me go play in a different part of the world. So this is our first kind of big off the beaten path check. A lot of folks like to save this till they have the tower key, much like you try to save the Sheila 1 check until you have the pan.
I do like this play a lot. It will tell Poidrac exactly who is waiting at the Rubicante spot, and if he sees a blue robe, he knows that's one of his required bosses.
Yeah, that's a very good point that, blue robes, at this point, we know what they mean. And there's a Baron key from Y2Sky, so that rat tail turn-in leading to yet more character checks. We see Dark Imps on the hook route and a Sparkle at the top of tower. Is this the Wyvern that always likes to hang out at the top of the tower?
I mean, Wyvern here is better than Wyvern most places.
Yes, I suppose that's true. D. Lunar here, this is... I mean, it's certainly doable, but it's kind of gross.
Yeah, this is probably... This or Ogopogo is probably the worst of the lunar bosses up here.
Yeah, this is... It's going to be done, but I wonder if it's quicker to Zerk up Cecil here and let him go nuts, or if it's quicker to Starveil up and just reflect the breath and hope you kind of get lucky on it. It looks like Poidrac is opting for the latter, and he is going for that reflected breath.
Completely understandable with that. Unfortunately, Excalibur doesn't give the big bada boom damage on these guys like, say, the Crystal Sword does. And even though their viruses aren't going to do a whole ton here, they're pretty fast.
That's true. They are very quick, and Poidrac does get the double breath, so now he can go ahead and just go nuts on the frogs, and Cecil will make fairly quick work of them. So very well executed lunar frog strats from Poidrac.
And Solaris in chat pointing out, Rosa may not have that Berserk yet.
That's true. She may not have Berserk. I know that there was a Bacchus wine picked up, at least for Y2Sky. I don't know if Poidrac also picked that up. He may not have.
Poidrac did skip those chests.
Okay. So here is that Asura fight we saw when starting off the seed. Going to be very manageable for Y2Sky. Going to get a wall up on Asura, so all of her healing bounces. And going to get a Zerk up on Cecil, and this is going to be a common theme for the rest of this seed, is Zerk on Cecil.
I'm sure both of our runners would love to see an Avenger pickup.
And that's a Sand Ruby for Poidrac. Do we have eyes on who's in bed? I do not recall seeing it, but I know we had some technical difficulties earlier, and that may have been a check that was made whilst we were unable to see it.
If it was somebody like Fu, an Edge, that would be a huge pickup.
Absolutely. And huge shout outs to our behind the scenes crew. Neobari doing the restream and rolling this beautiful seed so far, and Maggie the cat doing tracking for us, and of course the wonderful Alicel doing commentary, and our runners putting on this fantastic show for you, Poidrac and Y2Sky. Make sure, give everybody a follow. They deserve your love. They deserve your support. So click that button. Click those links. Don't eat those buttons. Click those buttons. Give him that follow.
Well, and don't forget about my co-commentator, Possumorpheus. He's pretty good at this game. I've seen him do some real good work.
I'll allow it. But Poidrac gonna find out who this character is. That is just a Palom, and Poidrac says, "I'm good."
Mages are not the thing in this tournament. With Slingshot turned off, if you don't get a mage real early, ugh.
Yeah, I think that was very much so true for the Swiss flags. I think there will be a little more of it, though, during the bracket stages. And the reason for that is, with T Wildish off, all of the nice pokey sticks for the Berserkers kind of faded away. So all those random defense sword drops and white spears and Murasames, those are not just going to show up everywhere. So I think mages will make a bit of a comeback in brackets, but not necessarily to, let's say, 3 miss zone levels of return to power, where everything was mage, 24/7, 365.
And speaking of mages, Y2Sky picking up a Rydia from the Baron Castle check, and a Luca key. The chain just keeps on going.
Yeah, and this is a big pickup because that is one of the preeminent anchors in the game. Rydia starting with 4 agility, and that curse ring dropping her all the way down. Y2Sky deciding, let me check Baron Basement. I know that I have spent a little bit of time on Y2Sky's stream seeing him play, and the Baron Basement was one of his self-admitted blind spots. So I'm happy to see him making this check and not forgetting about this barren basement. Whether he's able to get through it or not, this is really good information for him to have. So very happy to see this being checked. Ooh. Well,
I mean, it's doable.
so one of the really fun things in free enterprise is when you get to a certain level, you get to find new and different ways to make a mess out of a CPU fight. Because you try to be aggressive, you try to do things like, let me zerk up Cecil and then blink the attacking orb. Or let me do any number of other things, go full zerk. Or, do some crazy spell strats. So one of the cool things that you get to see with CPU is runners try really difficult strats, and sometimes it results in spectacular success or spectacular failure. It looks like Y2Sky is saying, let me just attack with Cecil and do this right, and attack with Yang and not make any of these crazy risks.
And CPU is one of those bosses that is going to do the same damage no matter where you find him. It's just, he's always slow.
Yeah, well, the tough part about CPU is that you're on a clock effectively, but it's 10% of your health every single time that the mazer fires off. So it's not exactly a very accelerated clock that you're on. There's plenty of time to figure things out. That heal from Rosa is another 5 turns of mazering. So Y2Sky taking the very safe approach here, just leaning into that Excal Cecil, who is back row glitched, and doing 1500 damage a turn. This fight will end somewhere in the 10 swing range from Cecil, which is perfectly reasonable, and he'll be able to get through it and find out what this item is.
And we'll also see if Poidrac decides to go down the same route to kind of follow that Baron key.
I would expect he will. And the simple reason is we're kind of left with Baron key or nothing in Poidrac's shoes. I mean, Ogopogo's there, but that's a hard pass. So you're going to look for literally any excuse that is not named Ogopogo to do. So if that's the hook, if that's the Baron key, anything you can do to not have to deal with Ogopogo at Leviathan, you will do.
First, Poidrac's going to get the news that King Queen Evelyn is not going to be up somewhere nasty on the moon.
Yeah, King Queen Evelyn not going to be on the moon. Looks like we have globes firing on Y2Sky's side. That is the one target you did not want to get hit, was that Cecil. Does get the big orb down with Yang, though. So CPU decided to take a little bit of vengeance on that Cecil before the fight ended. But let's see what this reward is. Let's see if the time invested was worth it. And I dare say that would be worth.
That, yeah. I think at this point, Ogo can no longer be hard required.
If Ogopogo has the tower key, which has the pink tail behind it and either the gauntlet or pale dim, same with the earth crystal, that would be, I believe, the only way that Ogo could still be hard required. It takes a very particular confluence of events, though. So it is statistically unlikely at this point that O goes hard required, but it could always happen.
And Poidrac finding some hourglasses here. Looks like he might want to see who the character is and possibly see who that first boss is.
Yeah, I definitely expect a character check to be made. The big question though is, do you peek that first boss? If we see a save come out from either runner, I would expect that boss to be peaked. Y2Sky may be deciding he's all set on everything. That is a Porum, which is probably not a party member that our runners are going to take on at this point. They already have Rosa. So I think that Porum, sadly for her, gets left in the cave.
Yep, Porum just a little too late and just does not have the late game utility that Rosa does.
Yeah, not only the utility that Rosa has, but also the utility that Tella has. The strange thing is, Tella's HP growth, while it is atrocious, is closer to Porum's than Porum's is to Rosa. And Tella comes with black magic, which is a really weird way to think of things. But Tella in this case is going to do a lot more for Poidrac than that Porum will, which is kind of sad in a sense that, you know, everyone likes to dump on Tella, but in this case he actually has a lot of viability for this party.
Definitely. Those utility spells, you know, you never really used them as a kid when you played, but here in Free Enterprise, they are king.
Yeah, because I mean, even something like a potential Luca cave check, which Y2Sky may be doing here, Tella has warp. Although says no to the Luca cave check, is going back to the Fey March. I think Y2Sky knows that there's that water hag here and at least wants to take on the hag. Maybe he gets really frisky and decides to take on Ogopogo as well, but I'm thinking this is just a water hag check.
He knows it's an extremely easy check. You've got 5 characters now. You've got a little bit more levels. You would hate to head up to the moon and have one of your objectives just sitting here behind a free boss. So this is absolutely a correct play in my mind.
Yeah, I would expect to see both this and possibly the Luca cave check done by Y2Sky before going to the moon. Partially because that Luca cave, you get to see the key item and the boss before having to fight anything. So I would like to see both our runners make that check as well. But that water hag at this Queen of a Summoned Monster spot coming up shortly for Y2Sky, while Poidrac is making his way through Baron and finds these Calbrana dolls, which go down in one lipple. So Cecil doing his best black magic impression.
And we'll see if Poidrac wants to take the time on that CPU fight or goes and follows that Luca key. But deciding not to take that Rydia, probably feels with that Tella and a curse ring, Tella's going to do the job just fine on anchoring.
Yeah, and Tella does make ultimately a better anchor because he does have access to Cure 4. So as an anchor, you can still use Cure 4 and have it full heal, regardless of who it's single targeted on. And looks like that life staff also going onto Rosa for Y2Sky. Not much of a surprise. She's going to do some real good healing now with those Cure 3s. And Y2Sky says, nope, we're good, no Ogo. Let's go literally anywhere else. While Poidrac is heading down to the basement, and we'll see if he decides, as you had alluded to take on that CPU or not. But Y2Sky says no Luca Cave check. Looks like he is going to the moon.
And I do wonder if both the Luca Cave and the top of tower are kind of lingering in his mind as he goes ahead and raises the whale.
Yeah, it's something where he may just think, based on key item distribution, he may simply be thinking, well, I know the Pinktail is a terminal key item. I know that in these flags, it's on the moon, roughly 1 in 3 seeds, just straight up on the moon in one of those spots. End of story. So if Y2Sky knows the item distribution and knows where things generally are in seeds, he's likely figuring the Pinktail somewhere on the moon, which means he's in a boss hunt for either the Gauntlet or Pale Dim. And you could always get a double, where one of those 2 bosses also gates that Pinktail.
Yep, absolutely. Although you're probably looking for Pale Dim or hoping for Pale Dim more than the Alt Gauntlet, because Alt Gauntlet on the moon is rude.
Well, yes and no. And there was something that Y2Sky did earlier, which, thinking about it now, makes a lot of sense. He bought 5 hourglasses. There's 5 fights in a gauntlet. So I think that was a very calculated move by him to get a potential grind done, because he is at 10 key items. If he can find this gauntlet, that may be all the grinding he needs, and he has the hourglasses to do it. So unless he runs into the gauntlet at exactly the Crystal Sword altar or the Ogopogo location, I believe you can hourglass every other single encounter in all of the gauntlet for all the rest of the lunar spots. So I'm thinking that's what his play was here, which is actually really heads up.
Now, we as viewers and commentators are, of course, hoping for them to be at one of those other locations. Like a good old-fashioned Alt Gauntlet at Ogopogo, hard requiring something.
I mean, Ogopogo Alt Gauntlet with the Pinktail, that would be good enough for me, because that means we get a hard required Ogopogo Gauntlet. And I won't even be greedy beyond that. But looks like we are going to get a value cave check from Y2Sky. And Poidrac going through and taking on this CPU. I wonder if we'll get some gold dragons as well from Y2Sky, given that he has those 10 key items. This is a spot where you can summon them. And he has the hourglasses to stop them, and I believe has that telestill to weak them. Well, that's also a free fight.
And if you want to use one of those hourglasses, can get you a nice little infusion of XP.
Yeah, this spot will give 70,000 base XP with 10 key items, so a life glitch here would push him to about 105,000, and does opt to use one of those hourglasses. Also going to throw on a coffin for good measure. Going to get that life glitch, so going to get about 105,000 XP, I think, here, which is a huge pickup for this team. That's going to be a lot of levels. Not caring about the levels on Tella, which means that Tella is probably going to be his anchor, and he's going to let Rydia have some fun and actually gain some levels, which is not something you get to see every day on these flags.
No, definitely not. Rydia having one of the worst XP curves in the game.
However, that's a white shirt, which in my book, I think I'm okay trading an hourglass and a coffin, or excuse me, an hourglass and 2 coffins for a white shirt and 100,000 XP. I think that's a very good trade off for Y2Sky there. And also a lunar check done in very short time. So nicely and efficiently done. And we are going to get our Luca key check from Poidrac.
This is a fun play. Poidrac gonna go ahead, knows I need a key item, I need a boss. This could potentially be go mode for Poidrac.
Yeah, this is a big play again because you get to see all of the stuff before you have to fight any bosses. It's very similar to Value Cave, which Y2Sky just did, but even better in a sense because you get the key item beforehand. Poidrac going down and doing this Luca key check, and I really do like this, whether it works out or not. I think this is very heads up because if this is, the Fabul Gauntlet, let's say, which is absolutely atrocious at this spot, it is my least favorite spot to find the Fabul Gauntlet at. But that is huge information. That means he can face check for Pale Dim, or take free fights on the moon until he finds the Pinktail, or some combination thereof. So it's going to be very interesting if this Luca key has value for Poidrac.
And we also still have not seen a Demist. So there is still a cheeky Demist hiding somewhere in this seed.
That's very true. So effectively, we're kind of on a triple boss hunt. Leviathan Orb, not what you want to see, is going to check the boss